All right, so today on our Atelier talk, we have Daniel Talton. How's it going, Daniel?
Pretty good, pretty good.
Good. It's really great to have you on. I first heard your music on a playlist. Actually, do you remember the name of that playlist? It was like a
It's a spooky folk playlist.
dude, a
Yeah,
spooky folk playlist.
no,
That
that's
was
right.
yeah. What a time, man. That was a dark. Was Jeff Buckley on that playlist?
I think so. I think it's lots of Bird on a Wire and lots of Leonard Cohen, lots of dark, very stark black and white cover photos kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, I was pretty excited actually. I listened to the whole thing and yeah, your track came up and I saw that you were um that you just released an album and that song that I'd heard was called Master's Cave.
hmm
And yeah, I listened to it so many times that first week. It just trying to get the feel. I think it's mainly acoustic guitar and your vocal, but
hmm
and it's crazy how many different people have made acoustic guitar and vocal music, but that's still your song had such an impression on me. Could
Thank you
you
very much.
talk about Master's Cave a little bit?
Yeah, that song I think is one of the better songs I've ever written, certainly. And it was yeah, I guess I don't know. It's just one of those ones you kind of find and just kind of I don't even remember where it came from really,
Yeah.
but it's the same melody four times repeated over and over again. Same chords four times repeated, and the chords are A and E. So I was pretty excited about that, and yeah, I just think it kind of that is a good thesis. I think it's like a good mission statement or like thesis statement for the kind of music I want to make and where I want to be, where I want to live musically. I think.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. You kind of there's a lot of darkness talk in it. What would you say the kind of that lyric represents in that song, the darkness?
It was kind of I don't know. For me, I guess it's a lot of it's like crossing the threshold. It was part of a lot of songs that I've been writing at the time that I'm still kind of in a zone of about crossing a threshold and walking into the dark, and the idea being, I guess, that I don't know, just that you're going to this place where there are more you're going to the place where like things are real, where things are really real, and you're going into the center of things, but also that you're not guaranteed safety.
Mm,
That it's not it's like a very dangerous undertaking, and that you probably won't make it out, but that maybe it's still worth it's still worth going. Maybe
mm,
it's the only thing you can do is to cross this threshold, either walk forward or walk back. I guess I'm not really sure. I'm not doing I'm not doing it quite justice.
no, yeah, I mean that's okay. I think I get it, man. When you write music, sometimes it just feels good. Sometimes it just feels right, and it keeps feeling right. And like to describe it in detail, almost like limits
Mm,
its overarching like capability, because I think yeah, a lot of songwriters write things that are way bigger and way beyond and for way more people than
mm,
for themselves. And so to understand like the reach of your song, I don't know. Yeah, maybe it doesn't make sense. Maybe we shouldn't completely know what our songs are.
I like to think of it as there's this sort of treatise called "The Cloud of Unknowing." Have you ever heard
Yeah.
of that?
Yes.
Yeah, you know the Cloud of Unknowing.
Yeah.
Yeah, but to summarize it, it's kind of I can't remember his name, but I think it's actually an anonymous Christian mystic, medieval
Yeah.
Christian mystic, and the idea is that you are, in order to find God or to find this thing that's bigger than yourself, is that it's impossible to see, and then
Mhm.
all you can do is sort of approach and be within this cloud of unknowing, and to throw a sharp dart, or it's either a sharp or a bright, but it's a bright dart of longing love
Mm.
into it as far as you can, And then the idea is not that someday you will aim true, but that someday that thing that's in the cloud of unknowing will reach out and meet you halfway.
Mm.
And I think that, to me, that's what like writing songs is. It's just me throwing those darts into this cloud of unknowing to try and participate in a real, tangible, but also kind of magical, mystical way in, in the world, in the larger world, or in my larger self, or however you want to think.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. The darkness as unknowing.
Yeah, the cloud of unknowing. My friend, actually, I hate to plug. They're all gone now, but this is my copy. My friend and I is really good at. He's an incredible artist, and we kind of align in that way. So this is his kind of
Oh,
rendition. We made
wow.
a little picture disc,
Oh,
but
that's awesome.
this is
What?
his little. This is his cloud of unknowing. I just wanted to make sure I got
Mm.
a chance to show it off.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. And what tracks of yours are on it?
Master's Cave, I Don't Want to Die, and then a secret, one that's only on the pressing. But it's kind of,
Oh, nice.
yeah. I've been trying to live in this world of kind of sort of like trying to create like a cosmology, right? Trying to create like a world that's like a magical realist world, and then put all these songs that almost like exist within that space.
Mm.
And some of them are really great, and some of them are really bad, and some of them are fine. So yeah, just trying to. Those songs are all within that sphere.
Mm. Yeah, and if it's a world, it's like you can't ignore the great, the bad, the okay, or just fine.
Yeah.
Like a world needs all of it,
Mm.
right? We were talking before we started about like writing just a ton of songs and like weeding in and out of like or weaving in and out of which ones are like worth spending all this time, maybe even money, like recording, and
Mm-hmm.
which ones are just kind of like, well, that's a cool voice memo, and maybe that's all it will ever be.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think when you first start out, or at least for me, when I first started out, I was just so blown away by the fact that I could do this at all,
Hmm.
that every iteration of doing it was like this incredible magical thing that could never happen again.
Yeah.
That it's like, I have to record this now because I wrote a song, you know what I mean? And then, as I go, it becomes more of like, I wrote a song yesterday, I'll write a song today, and it's not every day, but it's like, I wrote a song last week, I'm writing a song now. I'll probably write a song tomorrow. So then it becomes less about like, holy shit, I wrote a song, and more like, I'm trying to. There's a thing that speaks through the song, and sometimes it speaks very loudly, and sometimes it's not really there, and it's kind of about. It becomes more of a finding the right material, I guess.
Yeah. Dude, that's beautiful. I think I still feel that way.
Yeah.
Like I can't get out of it, man. I have this like running joke with my bandmate Sam, where every time we write a song, we're just like, I never thought I would do it again.
Yes. No, for real, for real.
And it
Yeah.
happens like every week now, like you're
Yeah.
saying, but we just still every time it's like, I thought that last one was the final one.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is weird. I've noticed that. I feel that as well. I've talked to a lot of other songwriters that have that same feeling, that it's like, this may be the last one. Like,
Yeah.
I better. And I think that's a beautiful thing too, because it's like, man, I better put my gut. Like, there's no. You have to put your guts in every single one, right?
Mhm.
You gotta put it all in, or else, what if it's the last one and I didn't commit? You know what I mean? So,
Maybe that's it. Maybe it's that you have nothing left after you write a song.
okay.
Literally used all the information that can currently be accessed that you've been exposed to.
Mm.
You put it all together.
Yeah.
You didn't ignore anything. No trauma, no anything. You've put all of it, and this is the result. This is the best clarification that you could imagine. And so then you're like, well, yeah, I have nothing else. But then maybe it takes a day to get some more info, like some new information might come in a day or in a week or
Right. Do you think that songs come from, where do you think songs come from? Do you think they come from life experience? Do you think they come from some internal mechanism? Like where do you think like a song comes from?
Mm, that's a that's
That's
very
a big one.
yeah, it's a good one though, man. It's a very really important one, I think. But I think there is I think it's external, um, and then we internalize it, and then it's almost like an A to D to A convert, like your audio interface.
Ah, okay.
I think there's that conversion that happens. Like it starts analog, like I'm speaking into this microphone analog, and then
Right,
it goes digital, right? It goes in, and then our
right.
job is to reconvert it from digital back to analog.
Mm.
And that's, I don't know, that's kind of a helpful way for me to see it.
No, I think that's a great way to put it. And it also includes a lot of things that happen, which is that inevitably whatever it is comes out through your filter of personal experience and personal style and the music you grew up listening to, and you know that it this and maybe that's why we can never do it enough times, you know, is because you never really fully express it as you experienced it, because it's always colored through this lens. So it's like, I got to try again, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. Mm. Wow. What a time. So
Pretty
cool.
fun, pretty
It's
fun.
so fun. Dude, I saw a music video for Master's Cave, right? And so that's cool. And I saw that did you shoot it?
I did shoot it, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Did you think that that would happen?
I don't know. You know, that's something I've really been enjoying. I really like movies a lot. I like Werner Herzog. I like all these, you know. So I think you can capture in the same way with images that you can in sound, kind of this like unexplainable sublime thing. And I was with another band, and we were going to make a music video, and I really wanted to do it on film. And I found, oh well, okay, it's like not that expensive. I'd always felt like, oh man, I really love to like, you know, make films or, you know, some kind of image thing. But, and I'd gotten like a digital, like a DSLR, but it was all just so complicated and didn't seem, you know, there was just so many options, and it's so infinite, like how much you can shoot, that I really didn't know what to do. But then it turned out the film camera was not that expensive. I got like a Bolex 816 in like great working condition for like 300, which is like a, you know, like a cheap guitar. So I saved some money, made that happen. And then the film itself is kind of expensive, but also limiting in that really nice way. I know people talk about that a lot, but you know, I only have one reel. I've got like 3 minutes of footage. So like that footage is one reel of film, and just every moment on that reel of film,
Mm.
and really not really even edited. So it's kind of just in the order I shot things. Um, but I just had to use everything. And so it kind of creates, there's like a, I don't know, it feels less like deliberate conscious choices made by an auteur or something, and more like the strange thing you found on the ground, I think, which is kind of what I really want to capture, is this. I really want my music, and I really want things that I make to really, even though I'm relatively, I think, pretty approachable, and you know, I'm happy to talk about things, but I
Mm.
really want it to sound like you found this scratched CDR on the ground without a label on it, and you put it in your CD player, and just this strange gospel like came out, you know, and you can't really explain it to friends, and it, you know, that kind of thing, or it's like a really internal mystery kind of thing. So I think the shooting that was I felt very lucky and able to capture something that I think works in that way.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you do visual art as well?
No, I'm pretty lost when it comes to like drawing or things like that. But I love to hike, so I think that's part of it. Is I love to hike, and I know, you know, I really feel like, you know, things that are beautiful when you see them, right? You know,
Mm.
things that are beautiful to you, and then yeah, and I think part of that, what's really cool about think that too, is it's all because of the film. It's I couldn't you can't, I couldn't shoot it in the middle of the day. I could only shoot it outside at dawn or sunset. And so it requires kind of like a, you have this limited time frame, and you're just where you are right now, and you just happen to be where you are right now, and then you just have to turn the camera on and just hope whatever it is that you're trying to talk to speaks, kind of thing.
Yeah, and I think having those limitations creatively, like you said, is important. Like it's valuable. Sometimes you need it, and I think, well, usually we're just used to it, right? It's like if we have to go to work, right, in the day, say you work at 12 or 11 a.m., 1 p.m., something like that, and you wake up and you're like, and you have this crazy idea and all this creativity, but you have work. There's that boundary. There's that limitation.
Hmm.
um, and you start to write and you're like, oh my goodness, I have to finish this song, right? I remember when I first started writing music, like songs, I think it was like actually doing it was during like finals week for school.
Right.
Because I think, I guess you just have all that adrenaline, whatever, and mine just went straight to songwriting rather than, you know, uh, math.
Right. Right.
Ah, shoot. Well, not really studying for this algebra test, but like I'm finally writing a song. This is the best day of my life. I've got, a
Yeah.
half hour to put this thing together, and I put it together. Um, yeah.
I think that kind of speaks to like why the mystery that I feel like I've been trying to solve part of my whole life, which is why is it that bands that are really good or artists that are really good, as they seemingly get access to more resources,
Mm.
music gets worse, like, or it gets less focused, or like, I like to phrase it, and I love Modest Mouse. I think they're hugely formative for me, but the way I like to form it is, why is Modest Mouse bad now? It's like, sorry, uh, but it's like, I've seen them live, and it's an awkward show, and it's not very good, and the new music is just like missing a thing that some of
Mm.
the old stuff had. And maybe it was just me, maybe it was just where I was in my life, but that's been kind of a central mystery of like, why is it that bands, when they seemingly get a lot of money and they can do whatever they want, and they have all this time and all these resources, why does the music seem to suffer because of that? And I
Mm.
wonder if it isn't because of that, like, there's just something to having to use what you have, and like that chance kind of speaks in a way that if you make every decision, there's like a different feel to something where it's clear that somebody made that everything was intentional, like Stanley Kubrick, you know what I mean? Like those are masterworks, right? But like there's something
Yeah.
a little sterile about it,
Yeah. Mm. Like maybe it's not every human's experience necessarily. It's definitely his experience of getting to make all the decisions and having like a lot more control
Yeah.
rather than just like making something in the midst of just the chaos of life.
Right. I think it kind of plays into a little bit of what we talked about earlier about like myths of music making. And I think part of the myth that I swallowed and people my age swallowed, that wasn't, I think, that is now we're seeing the perils of it, uh, is that, the idea that like Radiohead is huge because they're super geniuses. And
Mm,
it's like they're just so good at music, they're just so super genius, they're
mm,
so smart
yep.
that everything worked out for them. And it's like, of course, everything didn't work out for them, but also it turns out when you give people that much power, what you get is not an ideal human being.
Mm,
You get like Harvey Weinstein. So I think that's part of what we're seeing with all the Me Tooing is like, oh, like we really gave artists like a lot of leeway because we said you're a super genius, you're superhuman. But it turns out when you tell people that they're superhuman, what you get is not what you get is some good art, but you also get like a like a person that destroys other people, you know.
wow.
So I think it's really a challenge of our age, where for one thing, super fame is not really possible because we're all famous. You know what I mean? That we have to reinvent what it means to be an artist, right?
Yeah.
And what it means. What does that mean financially? What does that mean, like, you know, culturally, like within a group, not just me as an isolated human being, but me with a family, me with friends, me with a person among people, a human being amongst human beings. Um, and I think that that's a powerful thing. And I think that to try and cling to this, I must be a super genius, is to really cling to a dead past. So that's my
Mm,
hot take.
yeah. And I think it's hard not to believe what people say.
Yeah,
You're reading like comments and other things. And it's hard, like even if you're like, oh, that's not true, or like, like whatever, it still just like makes its way. It's like a little seed and it gets in you.
right.
And then the songwriting process is right, like converting that and then it goes back out. And yeah, dude, that's such a good, I think about that a lot. Bands that get all these resources or right, they finally are playing stadiums everywhere and they put out another album and it's just so different.
Yeah,
It can be so different. I think a lot of people wonder, what is
yeah,
that? What is that about? And but like a band, I think Coldplay is like like people talk about Coldplay when you think
right,
about this idea. And I think after this latest album, we everyone's responsible to talk about it again. Like of course after they make like a dance album after Parachute, or like a few
right,
albums after Parachutes, people are talking. They're like,
right,
okay, like, the world's on fire. What happened to Coldplay? But it's
yeah,
to me, I processed it a bit and I thought it kind of makes sense, man. If you're traveling the world playing for thousands and thousands of people, maybe you're gonna feel that they all want to party. Maybe
right,
you're gonna feel that they all want to just dance and they all just want to sing along
right,
every and you're up there feeling that every night when you're playing like Fix You and these like super like sad slow
right,
songs that feel so good on an album.
yeah,
Maybe in a huge stage, thousands of people, a whole set list of Fix You isn't the best thing. Maybe we're not like so emotionally able to handle all of that pain processing for 2 hours straight. I don't know. And
I
so
know.
the
I think that's
dance album,
extremely astute. Yeah, I think that's extremely astute, and I think that is, yeah, I think that's just true. I think that's a lot of the logic and a lot of the feeling, and it makes a lot of sense. It's just human beings reacting. You're reacting to the environment you're in. You're reacting to what's around you. But I think the danger is that the environment you're in is like not real for vast majority of people.
wow.
So I think that's part of the thing, that it's like, wow, this, I really can't relate to this anymore. And it's like, well, it's because their lives don't have anything to do with your life anymore. It's kind of, so it's like, it's the curse of success, right? It's like, yes, you're like in this, you've achieved everything you want to achieve, but in doing so, you've removed yourself from most of like the world around you. You've insulated yourself from most of the world around you. And I think that's part of why rich people and famous people do crazy things that don't make any sense. Like where you kind of look at it and you're like, why would you do that?
Yeah.
I think it's part of just because they don't, I know I would never do that, because if I did that, I would get slapped. You know what I mean? Like my girlfriend or my parents would call me and they'd be like, what are you doing? You need to shape up. But
Yeah.
when you're removed from that influence, uh, maybe I think our thought was, if you get removed from that influence, if you're removed from society, man,
Mm,
that you'll be more free and you'll be more able to achieve works of genius, artistic works of genius. But maybe as you are removed from those things, you're actually removed from part of what makes you like a human being, a
yes.
human being amongst human beings.
Yes. And now your creations, maybe they don't function anymore as something that unites people, something that connects people, but now they function as an escape or a
Yeah.
coping mechanism, which also has value. I mean, a lot of music out there people go to escape.
Mhm.
But I think at least I know in Master's Cave, like to me, that song wasn't an escape. It brought me into myself and it allowed me to deal with the things that I needed to deal with in order to grow. And
Yeah,
I really
that's what it
appreciate,
does for me as well.
yeah, that was more valuable to me than like, I can't deal with this right now. I'm gonna put on some new Kanye.
Right, right. Well,
Sorry, Kanye.
no, it's all good.
It's great. This new song.
Kanye doesn't mind, I don't think. But yeah, I think that's part of it too. Is like that those things are not what we need to do right now. And I think part of what happens as you get those resources is you become a product. Like what, one of the things that we don't kind of talk, or, maybe some people talk about, but success in music is becoming a product. It's becoming a sellable product. And I think it's part of why, Prince talks about, like all these people talk about, when you're a huge artist, you're still fucked all the time, like financially, with your time, with your energy. And a lot of that is because you are not a crafts person, you are a product being sold. And so the people making money are the people who are selling, shaping and selling the product. You don't, you don't pay the product. You pay the people who sell you the product. So so I think what happens is terribly, not only do you become this thing that doesn't unite people anymore, but you become this thing that actually serves to oppress people. You become this thing that actually serves to you know, um, put people in boxes where they're just expected to buy and sell. And I think that's what people, I think that's why people respond so negatively to it. I think that's why it feels like such a personal affront when
Wow.
Coldplay releases a dance album. It's because, man, I thought you were like me, but it turns out you're just one more person trying to sell me something. You know?
Wow. Mm,
So
that's
it's a danger, and it's something to balance as we try and figure out what we're trying to do, like making music.
yeah, and it's big decisions because you can have a great impact and influence on people and piss people off, right? Just as much as you can like soothe them and all those other things, like you could also offend people.
Hmm.
So it becomes a responsibility as you enter into making music, not just, as an expression or a hobby, but as when you attempt to make music as a service.
Are you familiar with the hero's journey? Do you know the hero's journey? Do you know Joseph Campbell? Have you heard of him?
Yeah, yeah, okay. Yeah, the faces, right? Isn't it?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. The 10,000 faces of the hero, 1,000 faces of the hero.
Yep.
But that's his like famous one, and he talks about the hero's journey. And one of the points he makes in there, which is a good one, I think, is that the hero is someone who descends into the underworld, right, and achieves or finds the forbidden knowledge, or finds the truth or something like that. But then the hero is also the person who returns with it. That the hero must come back and try and integrate what he or she found
Yes.
into the place they came from. So
Yes.
that there's the example of Ulysses, right, where Ulysses goes out, and I think he's on Circe's island, and she's like this goddess who's like in love with him, and he could stay, and I think that's where we find him at the beginning of the Odyssey, is like he's on this island, and he could stay on the island forever, stay in the world of the gods and the goddesses and become a god himself,
Yes.
but he wouldn't be the hero if he did that. He's the hero because he returns, and I think that's part of what we talk about when we talk about the importance of presenting it to people. It's not just, it is largely because I just want it to be heard, right? But it is, I think, also because that's finding the thing is only half the job. The other half is bringing it back to your family, to your community. And that's another point he makes in there that I think is a funny one, is that that's really the most difficult part.
Yeah.
The vastly the most difficult part is trying to convince other people of what you saw,
Wow.
and oftentimes they're not successful. But the job is not to be successful. The job is to attempt to make the attempt. So I think that's part of what we talk about, of should it be on a playlist? Should it be a single? Is this an album? Is that's all part of the returning with the
Wow.
torch.
Wow. Dude, it makes me think of all the modern stories that like how we've processed those ancient stories and what we're making now. And I think of like films like Gravity. Uh,
Mm,
and well, maybe this one's more like that because it was an island, like you mentioned, but just like Tom Hanks, like Castaway. Like,
right.
because what if the island isn't like like pleasure, What if it's like what if what if it's death? What if it's right, like isolation, and you go there for a certain amount of time? And I
Mm.
think, that wouldn't be a movie if he didn't return. He
Yeah.
didn't come back. And obviously, right, things have changed, and he has to try and, and it's sad, but like he's able to move on, like in the way that he does. He keeps moving on, right? That's it. Like I just kept breathing. I
Mm.
just kept like going.
And
With
and when
what?
he returns, there's like, oh, you go ahead. Sorry.
No, no, that's it.
Oh, just when he returns, there's something about him that is different than when he left. And I think part of that is because he's confronted on the island with himself and with incredible pain and incredible suffering, and he has to overcome them.
Yeah.
And so he comes back a different, stronger person. But yeah, he has to come back. If he experienced those things and then died on the island, it really wouldn't be much of a movie, like you said.
No.
You know?
Yeah. Oh, but then that's where like I see Radiohead as an influence because some things is it Weird Fishes where he's like, you know, you get down to the bottom
Mm,
and look up, or right there's
mm,
that just like we made it to the bottom, and shoot, I forget the exact lyric, but I feel that, right? It's like he's been searching and digging and exploring himself and his world. Um, but his world has changed, like you said. Uh, but can he still take responsibility for his world and choose to connect with the world as a whole? I think
mm.
so, right?
That makes sense. Yeah, and it's like he gets, I like that I mean the hook is, I get eaten by the
There he
worms of your
is.
fishes, right? So it's he goes and is like dissolved essentially,
Mm.
kind of dissolves into this thing, and then yeah, and I guess the question is, what do you do? What do you do with that when that happens to you? So I don't know. Interesting.
So maybe because what if some of that fame, what if that some of some of that you don't choose? I think we choose it, I think Tom York chose it, I
Right.
think Justin Vernon chose it. I
Right.
think, right, like Chris Martin chose it. Like, right, there's so many intentional decisions where they were like, this, I, yeah, like I can choose to take a step back and to keep living my life as a songwriter that makes music for my family and my friends, or I
Mhm.
can make this choice that might lead me to, right, worldwide international fame.
Right.
And I think there were probably thousands of decisions that put them on that track.
Right. Yeah, I think so. I think that's also another myth that is really dangerous is the myth of like making it. The myth of just like, man, there was just this one moment and they were just ready for this one moment and they said yes to this one moment and then everything happened from there. Like so and so was at their show and saw them and then they made it. It was just one thing. And it's like it's not really one thing, it's like thousands of decisions every day, you
Yeah,
know?
yeah,
And it's like, and I don't have any experience with that, so I'm not sure. But that's it's just I think how you live a life, right? You don't just like one thing. One thing may happen to you and it may change your life, but you can choose to accept that thing or you can choose to reject that. It's still the ball still comes back to your court quite soon.
do you listen to Bon Iver at all?
A little bit. I've listened to For Emma Forever Ago.
Yeah, dude, I think following his journey, his album journey, and maybe even watching an interview could be an interesting time because he goes through that, and for him a lot of the fame and the power was like really crippling.
Right,
Still made an album and it was darker and it was really different, and a lot of
right,
people were like but he was like crippled, like he couldn't play shows, he had to cancel a tour
right,
because of just how much anxiety he felt. And like after, like I think that power trip and everything,
right,
and there's been time since then to continue processing. And this latest album, and he talks about it in an interview, just like how much freedom and joy, and how and you hear songs on the album now that are about uniting people and uniting around um, right, problem, like social issues going on in the world, and how to like process those things and making
mm,
music to like confront those things. So I feel like in his case, it has been a journey, and he's continued to make music, so that's cool. You get to see that. But
Hmm.
then it's I think it pushed his perspective beyond. And so in that sense, it's like nice. Like I'm glad that like the pressure of the music industry and the
Hmm.
world and attention has has pushed him, and he's been able to integrate it and take the time and show us what he experienced from that attention and the power and the responsibility that he's been given.
Mm. That's a wild world.
Yeah, it is. It is a wild world. Dude, man. So, dude, your album, Edwin Roach. Can you talk a little bit about yeah, who or what is Edwin Roach?
That's kind of, I just tried to make, I'm still trying to organize like a larger foray into that feeling, that kind of that place. But yeah, it was kind of a trying to make a music of a place. Like these are all stories. These are all kind of myths from from this place. And this place is a place where Edwin Roach lived. And
Mm,
Edwin Roach is, my mother's maiden name is Roach and my middle name is Edwin. So just thought it
mm,
was a cool name. But really, a lot of it is experience in or an experiment with to try and approach recording really differently and approach like making an album really differently. You know, normally, yeah, I sit down with a batch of songs and I have some friends in a band or friends who are going to help me make the record, and we like bang them out. And it's kind of, we've played these songs live a lot, blah blah blah. But with the stuff that's Daniel Talton, with that with Edwin Roach and the record before, a lot of it was an experiment in, can I capture like synchronous events kind of thing. Are you familiar with like synchronicity, that idea?
talk to me more about it.
It's just the idea of like coincidence, of like these beautiful coincidences, or like kind of coincidences that are too coincidental to be coincidences, you know. And I have that experience quite a bit, and so it was kind of like, can I capture it? And so the attempt was to try and play these songs and find moments, and to only allow moments on the published record where that are really absolutely one of a kind moments in real life, like things that happened in real life. So one of them, like Master's Cave, that's the best time I've ever played that song. I don't think I've ever played it better. And we were in a studio and we were working on another record, and things happened to be rolling. I happened to be sitting down with the guitar, and so I started playing that song. And when it was done, I just knew that was the best time I ever. That was the moment. That was the moment. There's a couple other moments that are more uh, I must go back. I think there's that's an iPhone recording, and I really like that song. I tried so many different ways to record that song, but the voice memo wound up being, I think, the most powerful, just because of the performance, but also because of the coincidence of my bathroom fan is going on, and I think my bathroom fan is like a bee, and
Yeah,
so it's a drone note
yeah,
throughout the whole thing. It has this drone note that's in key,
yeah.
and it's my bathroom fan. And another, like, Prairie Hill has a helicopter flyby like right at the peak moment of the tune. And
It's an
then
acapella,
Florida,
right?
what's that?
It's an acapella track, though,
That's
kind
the acapella track, yeah. So there's a helicopter makes its way right at the right moment. And then the most powerful, I think, was the last tune, which is Florid, which is a show I played. And I was projecting Werner Herzog's film Lessons of Darkness. Have you seen that one?
of. Mm-mm.
It's a good one. But so, they had this projector at this venue. I knew they did. So I was like, oh man, I'm really going to take advantage of this. So I projected this thing. And my, when I started playing the film, I saw that the projector itself had a speaker on it and was still um, playing the music from the film. So I was kind of had a moment where I was like, okay, well, we're kind of running behind. A show is like kind of running behind, like we need to start the show. So I was like, man, I can take a long time to try and figure out how to turn that off, or I can just roll with it and see what happens. So
Yeah.
we just rolled with it. And so a lot of the kind of the weird ethereal sounds that are going on are from the music of the film that just happened to be in key and to form this really beautiful kind of strange music going on over the tune. and it was only recorded because it was, was one of my friend's favorite songs, and he happened to have his iPhone recording, and he happened to be standing under the thing.
Wow.
So just the number of coincidences for this one moment in time to be captured were so many that I think it, and I think you feel that. I think you feel that in a powerful way. So that's kind of what that record is about to me.
Mm, that's cool. Do you imagine that that concept will go beyond the record?
The new thing I'm working on, so the challenge I'm having now is a lot of the new stuff I'm working on is more composed, more like, I need an instrument to play these notes, I need to play these notes. So by nature, it has to be more in a studio.
Yeah.
Kind of, it has to be more done like in an abstract world. So it's like, how can I bring that energy and that approach and that feeling into a really intentionally composed and really intentionally organized recording? And really, the answer is I have no idea. I'm still
Mhm.
figuring it out. So,
Yeah. And it sounds like there's always still that unknowing. And it's cool. It seems like you like to invite that into the process.
yeah. I think the music I've found that has both been music that I continue to love and continue to listen to, and also I've found that the people I bring it to love and continue to listen to is not really the stuff that I make very like intentionally, but is the stuff I make very accidentally.
Yeah.
So like, how can you do that with a piece of music that is also very composed? I guess is the new challenge.
Yeah, I think I've had a challenge, a similar challenge too. And and what I like to do now is just have that like accidental, I'm gonna play bass on this track.
Mm,
Um, but then I'll do that instead of just like the one time that I feel that,
mm,
I'll end up like tracking whenever I accidentally feel like playing bass on this track like
mm.
50 times. And then I'll listen back to those 50 and I'll pick one.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense, and that's a good way of doing it. And that's kind of the way I wound up doing these other was just record the song when it felt appropriate in a million different situations,
Yeah.
and then so that's a good point. That's a good idea. That may be a great place to begin that exploration, I guess.
Yeah, I really value like polished thing, like professional things now.
Hmm.
And I see like just it's like I want it to be accessible, right?
Right.
And so how can you make something like accessible but also like personal and have that like that soul to it, that
Mm-hmm.
accidental like spontaneous moment where we
Mm-hmm.
feel something in our heart and in our gut. But then also like can we stay within like the parameters of certain standards that help people just hear it like right.
Yeah, and hear it and understand it. Meeting people where they're at, kind of thing.
Yeah. Like
Yeah.
Spotify, like people listen on Spotify. So it's like that's something I feel like I mean, we can do Bandcamp and like things.
Right.
I feel like it's hard to ignore streaming right now as a musical
Yeah.
artist just because that's where people are at.
Yeah. And I think another kind of to tie a little bit everything that we're talking about together. I think that is a really powerful thing to do, and something I'm trying to do is unlearn like the album cycle, right? Because
Mm.
like the album cycle is successful largely for groups of people who have like a lot of money. When you have a lot of money to like do a PR campaign or do this or do that, and a lot of money to like make a record that's like a record that you impress and sell, or you know what I mean? So it's like, why would I try and stick to this model that's really not designed for me, and is really not really how people listen to music anymore, and
Mm.
it's really not particularly useful for me,
Yeah,
so it involves a lot of unlearning of like, okay, well, if it's not an album cycle, then what is it,
definitely. Yeah, we've talked about that before. I think we talked about that when we first met digital.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah, that's definitely something that, yeah, we've explored a lot too. And I think the most functional way I've found is to release, as I've told you, like a
Mm,
single a month.
right.
And if I can get ahead on that schedule, then I can make and record the song whenever I want.
Right.
If I write a song today, there's nothing really stopping me if I have at least a song or two ahead, there's nothing
Hmm.
stopping me from recording it right now if I want to.
Right.
I don't have to release it right now or at this month. I can release it when it kind of like falls into our structure.
Right.
But at least if I want to record it, I can just record it.
Yep.
Or if I
Yeah.
don't want to, like I don't have to.
Yeah, I think that's a powerful structure, and it also plays into what you want to do and what you feel moves you and what you feel makes your music moving, which is to play when you feel led to play and at no other
Mhm.
time, kind of thing. You know?
What
So,
is that, right?
what say again?
What is that? Like that play when you feel led to play, you know? What is that? Like
I don't know. I don't know. That's a good question. Um, I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I really don't have any I don't have thoughts. That's why I wanted to talk about it. It's like I feel that every day though. When I wake
Yeah.
up, I have to reanalyze what I want. And sometimes it's what I thought I would want for today.
Right.
But usually, there's something else there too. There's something new after I slept, right? Like
Right.
sleeping kind of changes our bodies and our minds enough to like, whoa,
Right.
um, maybe there's something I couldn't have thought of yesterday that I need to do today.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things maybe where it's like I don't know what it is, but I know it when I see it, kind of thing. And I think it all plays into these fun coincidences, feeling led to play. Kind of really it plays into just the feeling that you talked about earlier of that it comes from somewhere external, that
Mm,
it comes from somewhere else, and I cannot guide it. I can only filter it. I can only kind of play it back as it comes to me, which I think is I think that's a really powerful way to live your life, you know.
mm. Yeah, I like what you said. Won't really, you won't really know till we see it. But then how do we put ourselves in a position to see it?
I don't know. I think showing up, I think that's like the work, right? And largely the work is just showing up. Like a lot of the work is just being there, kind of mastering the skills you need to do, like recording and like playing the guitar and practice and just doing it every day so that when it does arrive, there's no barriers to it coming out,
Yeah,
kind of thing. Does that make sense?
that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah.
That
And I
makes
think I think in some ways like a song is like a spell, right? That's why that's another thing I like to think of Master's Cave and a lot of the songs on Edwin Roach is that they're spells, and a spell is like a linguistic, to use a big word, but really it's just a structure of words and sounds that becomes animated by this external spirit to work things in the real world, to make real changes in the real world, or like in your case when you were talking about song moving you, to make changes and to do work in your internal world. So I think that's part of what a beautiful song is this structure that it's just created in such a way that when the external thing comes, it can very easily fill the structure and work through the structure. So
Mm. So you build an environment.
yeah, that's a good way to put it. Yeah, you build an environment. And
Yeah.
it's kind of like there's a context, there's like the
Yeah.
context of like a rock song or a folk song.
Yeah. What kind of environment would you say you've kind of built for your process?
I've tried a lot of different things. I really like a lot of different things. I before the whole pandemic happened, I was playing a lot in like a kind of like a harsh noise band. That was a lot of fun, and that's a totally different thing, right?
Yeah.
That's like total free improvisation. That's I don't really know what I'm going to do before I show up. But I think with the Daniel Talton stuff, I've arrived at I think spells is a good way to think about them. That they're simple, small, quiet, and kind of I don't know how to put it. They're just they make a space that you inhabit for like a couple minutes where you can make some internal work happen. If that makes any sense, I feel.
Makes sense. Yeah. Yeah. I like that. Is there anything that's come up recently for you in your writing?
For me recently, I have really been trying to understand theory a lot better, music theory, and apply that. I have a friend who is really, really very knowledgeable about music theory, and I've made some songs with him, and it really just, I mean, floored me how quickly he could take something that sounded pretty good but was kind of interesting into something really beautiful so quickly just by because he understood theory so well. So I've really been trying to study that and be able to bring that in, and I've really found it very liberating. I thought it would be sort of stifling and kind of controlling, but really it has just given me a lot more tools to take things in new ways. And then, I have a lot of people I kind of bounce things off of, including like my girlfriend and my brothers. And often I'll find that if I do something I think is interesting that I pull from theory, it sounds cool too, and it's like, it doesn't sound like reading a bunch of books. It sounds just like an interesting, fresh sound, but it I got there by reading a bunch of books, you know.
Mm.
So then, how to make that work with this feeling of accidental beauty is part of that challenge of like, how can I bring these things together?
Yeah, integrating processes like our brains integrate, right? I mean, we're built that way. We're like kind of almost in like a dualistic way
Mm-hmm.
already. And we wonder why like everyone struggles with dualism and why nationally we struggle with dualistic thinking.
Yes. Yeah,
It's like our brains are literally like kind of separated. Uh,
yes. Yeah, that's a good point. I never thought about that.
Me neither, but like I am now. Thanks, dude. That's why we talk, right? It's like it's crazy how people can inspire new ideas being in the presence of new people, right?
Definitely, definitely.
Yeah, yeah. But Brett, you have this rational brain and then more like creative side, and I think that's crazy, right? And I think that's part of you were talking about theory, and it's like in the beginning you're like, well, this could be stifling, and I think that's like because you're kind of drawing away from that side of the brain that has made songs
Right.
in the successful part of your process. And now there's this other side. It's like, but it sounds like it helped, like you said.
Yeah, it winds up being very liberating. It winds up being very. It feels rewarding in another way that feels equally rewarding, and it also still feels like not. I guess I was worried that, and why I never learned, really thought anything about learning it before, was because I thought, and I think a lot of people think, that it would get in the way, that it would somehow get in the way of that free spirit acting,
Yeah.
that it would tell that spirit no.
Mm.
But really, I think what it's allowed me to do is just build more effective environments, build more effective environments for that spirit to come in, where it's like sometimes not every moment is just this beautiful, perfect moment. Sometimes it needs some help. Sometimes it needs a really interesting thing happening for the structure, and then it can pick back up again or something.
Yes. It's like a holistic thing
Hmm.
now. I think there's like a wholesome aspect of it that you can gain from the work of the other side of your
Hmm.
brain of like having equal, it's almost like being ambidextrous. I feel like the freedom you feel when you learn exactly what you just learned with your left hand as you've always learned with your right, like catching up, because now you're free, dude. Now you're like, well, if my right arm breaks, like
Yeah.
I know I can count on this one. The work is done. And then you can still use your right hand, maybe even more freely, because now you know if something does happen to it, and now you're using both freely, something like that.
I think about that a lot, just of how many parts of my body I need to do the thing I like to do, which is to write, record, and perform songs.
Mm.
So it's like I need my eyes to see the doll. I need my ears to hear the music. I need my hands. I probably don't need my legs. Like if I, but I couldn't really. Touring would be hard if I didn't have any legs, you know. So I do think about that. What would I do if I like lost my arms in an accident or something like that? And I'm sure I'd figure out. The thing I always come to is I'm sure I'll figure out some way to express myself somehow. But it is. I do think it's interesting how kind of it feels like purely brain work, right? It feels like purely spirit or brain work, but really it's very tied to your body
Hmm.
and kind of impossible without your body.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. How's live streaming been for you?
It's been good. I really had a good time doing it. I am taking a break from social media right now. I'm going to try and I think for me, I really think I'm onto something. I think I'm really onto something with this new record and these new songs.
Yeah.
But I think that in order to really make something really true and make something really valuable, I need to retreat from I need to descend, right? In the hero's journey. I need to go down. I need to go out to the island. I need to be Tom Hanks casted away. I need to kind of be alone for a while and away from the content machine.
Mm.
Uh, and also just as an experiment, just like can I get away with it? Can I still, because part of the fear is, man, if I delete my Instagram, like how, like we met over Instagram, it's like if I delete my Instagram, like how am I gonna
Yeah.
be a musician? And it's like, well, now's the time to figure out if I can. you know
Aw, that's a bold move.
we'll see. I may I didn't delete things, so I didn't quite commit fully, so
Dude, I tried to delete my Facebook like 4 weeks ago,
yeah.
and then I like had to sign into like my very important like bank app or like it wasn't a bank app, but it was like something functional that I needed to sign into. And
Yeah,
I accidentally had set that up through Facebook. And
right.
as soon as I signed into that, I was back on Facebook. They got me, dude.
Dude, they got me too. I think that's part of why it's good to try and get off, is to realize how deeply integrated it is into everything in your life and how almost impossible it is to live a life without it.
Mm,
And so and that's really scary to me. That's really like not good.
yeah,
So I think it's worth trying to take a look, at least take a look at that. You know,
yeah.
because
That's
and also it's just like, man, it just seems bad for your brain. Like being really involved on social media, it really just feels. I'll, I just had the distinct experience of waking up in the morning, making coffee, doing whatever, sitting down on the couch, and just before I jump into things, getting on Instagram and kind of looking through all the stories,
of
and
course.
feeling just distinctly worse after I got done looking at everybody's stories. And
Yeah,
everybody's stories are really encouraging. Hey, my life can be, some of them are really positive, but I just remember just feeling like shit,
yeah.
so why is that? I don't know.
I wonder how much of it is like physical ailment. My like blue light actually. I just
Okay.
um got some blue light glasses like last week,
Mhm.
and dude, literally I feel it. Like I
Yeah.
feel the same. I feel it almost the same as when I stopped eating dairy and I'm like
Right.
lactose, right? It's like
Right. Right.
what was I doing?
Right. Right.
Life doesn't have to be that pain.
It's like, oh, this is normal. This is how life should feel normally.
Yeah,
That,
it's like, wow, people don't I won't get into that, like the diet stuff, but like,
right. Right.
yeah, like life can be cleaner. I'll say it that way.
Right. Right.
Cleaner, and my head doesn't have to hurt. Because even this, I notice like these
Yeah.
glasses, it sucks. I have to figure out these Atelier talks, but right, like they have this like huge reflection.
Gotcha.
I can chill like this, but if I look at you, it's like crazy. But
Right. Right.
these like the last 2 hours just looking at the screen, like I feel that whatever that thing is.
Yeah. Same. It just makes me feel tired. It makes me
Mhm.
feel very tired and kind of. I don't want to read too much into it, but kind of just like, to extrapolate too much, just like kind of like hopeless. It just feels like, man, I can't really do anything. Like nothing's really worth doing. I'm tired, but I also like am not actually tired. Like I'm not going to go to sleep. It's just like my brain is so tired.
That's right. So you still have to like do things. Like you
Right.
don't feel satisfied because to sleep you have to feel fulfilled.
Yeah.
but you can't do anything. Like you're paralyzed.
Yeah.
Dude, I feel that. I feel that. I wonder if it's something chemically going on in our brains, like with the blue light, like it takes up all of our those like three main chemicals that we get. I forget.
Yeah, I definitely think I feel like we have in the past, just in my life, one of the things I kind of talk about as funny, or like a funny symptom of where we are in the world or whatever,
Mm,
is that people feel like nostalgia is a natural thing, right? But for like 26-year-olds to feel nostalgia is like kind of weird, or
yeah.
like for like 22-year-olds to feel nostalgia is like kind of weird. So, things have changed so much, and we've made so much progress, and we've accomplished so much without actually having done any of it long enough to find out what actually happens over a long period of time when you're exposed to this.
Yeah.
So, so I think that's part of where we're at as a culture right now is we had this universal, I think they call it like the California, utopia. We had
Yeah.
this universal idea of like technology is good and technology will make our lives better and the internet is good and the internet will make our lives better. But I
Yes.
think now we're kind of looking around and being like, wait a second, like I feel conned a little bit, you know what I mean? Or not even a little bit. I feel conned. I
Yeah.
feel like Facebook made me a promise and then took advantage of me. And
Yes.
and I think it's done thing, and it's kind of like I think something's happened to my brain. I think something's,
Mm,
I think something's happened to the way I relate to people. I think something's happened to my friendships. Like I think something has happened to my life that I can't put my finger on, but I think it has something to do with social media, especially like Twitter. Like I'm not on Twitter, but I have a lot of friends on Twitter, and universally, it seems to be the experience of like you get on Twitter and you just feel terrible because it just seems to be this place where, it's the hell site, right? It's this place where people are just horrible to each other, and there's really an interesting dialogue, but it also seems like a very poisonous place to be. And I think Instagram and Facebook are also kind of like that, but just this sense of like where is this desperation for, it's like a desperation for significance, you know what I mean? But it's like the significance can only be within these like very limited bounds, right? Significance means 100,000 streams, significance means like 2,000 follows or something, some
yeah.
arbitrary number. But really, as you found, when you achieve those things, your life doesn't really change that much.
Yeah.
So it's like I really, part of I think what's going on for me right now is a search for significance and having a real life that's important, but that I'm probably going to find that in meat space. I'm probably not going to find that online. So
Yeah. I think it's important for all humans to feel like they're capable
capable in what sense?
in like every sense, maybe.
Like capable of
Of
capable of what?
like capable of making it, capable of achieving, capable of surviving, capable of fighting, capable of
Right, right,
doing something good.
right.
And so for me, it's like the medium does matter, and I think that we should analyze social media right now because that for some reason the world is addicted to it,
Right.
and we're not in control of that addiction anymore.
No, and I think that is huge. I think that's really like a big part of it is before it felt like we were participants, or that we were part of the creation of the spaces that we lived in. But I think that is increasingly less true,
Mm.
that we're really just sort of participating in like four major structures, and you can't get on your bank without getting on Facebook. You know what I mean? Like that's crazy.
Yeah.
And yeah, and I think part of I think that the deal, at least for me, is I think it's very true. We want to be capable of something, and we need to be capable of something, but the social media demands that we do it in a louder voice maybe than we've heard before,
Mm.
while also refusing to define what that is, while also refusing to tell us what that is. It's like when I go to work and I get done with work, I know that I've done a thing. And when I make a song and I make, this thing, I know I've done a thing, and like I
Yeah.
feel it in my hands, and I look at it, and every time I look at it, I say I'm capable of doing that thing. Or
Yeah.
my guitar, when I look at my guitar, I know I'm capable of this thing. But when I make things on the internet, it feels empty. It feels it. I don't get that sense of satisfaction. Instead, the whole, and I think it's kind of a really, I think it's something you feel, and I think it's something that
Yes.
affects your life.
This is solid. This is really solid.
Rock and roll,
Yeah.
dude.
Good. Like, I think yeah, I've been trying to see the value of social media and the internet for a while, and I kind of, it's just interesting to like hear, to know or to like try and feel when it gets to that point where you don't know what it's doing. And then, but also like, I think as long as it's a medium that is helping people grow in like their confidence and courage and their ability to achieve things, it's good. And as soon as you cross over into the world of like of numbers and achieving like false things, it will
Yeah.
no longer fulfill people. It will no longer grow people's courage, confidence, and
Mm-hmm.
like connections, right? Because I like if at the beginning you're like, I want 500 followers, like a goal like
Right.
that or something like that, and it turns you into a person that like goes out and plays live shows and like talks to people in a room, and they're like, and then they end up being like, oh, what's your Instagram, and they follow you. That is a good thing. That can be a really good thing because
Yeah.
that now pushed you to go out and play live shows, and that was one of your goals. It's pushed you to meet someone and have an important conversation, and Instagram was just this silly little thing that made those important things happen.
Yes.
Like that, I feel like has been the goodness for me. But then on the other side, I've experienced there are false things. It's like, and especially the higher, right? The bigger the number, the
Right.
more you start not competing with your own, like not pushing yourself in a genuine direction to meet like real actual soul like connections and people, but now you're like trying to meet the powerful people in the world that can give you 100,000 followers tomorrow
Right.
because for some reason they own like, we don't even have to get into it, but they own a corporation that literally has thousands of robots on Instagram.
Right.
It happens. Like that's the way that our world works. There's a small percentage of control that has figured out the game,
Or designed the game. You know.
designed the game, the deception. Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, Facebook turned into that first, and I feel like Instagram is going to follow because
Yeah.
now every time I get on Facebook, there's evil. You
Yeah.
see all the ads.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're not even hiding it anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think that's a really good and a really powerful, really like good way of thinking about it and sort of protecting yourself is this a human connection? Is this a connection with another human being? And I think, if, like you said, if it is, then that's a very powerful thing. But I think increasingly it's like less and less possible and less feasible, and becomes more a connection with advertising, or a connection with another person with a mediator in between. I
Yeah.
don't want that mediator. I don't need a
Yeah.
mediator. But like we've talked about before, like if Spotify didn't exist, if Spotify playlists didn't exist, if Instagram wasn't there, you and I, we would not be having this connection right now. And I'm having a lot of fun. So so it is a powerful thing, and it is like
Mm.
a real deal. You know?
And at what point is it only the power hungry people that are on it? And that's like the follow for follow culture.
Right, right,
Right? That's exactly the expression of that. It's like,
yeah,
I'll give you more power if you give me more power. It has
right,
nothing to do with now, like who you are and the content that you're like hoping to create and the things you're trying to learn. It has nothing to do with all those things.
yeah,
It's literally just like, I'll give you power if you give me power. And then I'm gonna actually take your follow away in a couple weeks. I'm just
yeah.
gonna not follow you.
I agree.
Like, what? What is this game? I hate this game.
Peace.
Like
Later,
that, yeah.
later, bro.
Dude, you made it. You're free.
Oh well, no, I'm sure I'll get back on it. But I think it kind of leads a lot to kind of what we talked about earlier. I think before it started recording is that people are not dumb.
Yeah.
Like people know you pick up on that. Like if people pick up on that, and because we're in a world where everyone is just a person that I can talk to, because it's like the barrier between just a dude with social media and an artist is like smaller and smaller and smaller. Man, people have really good bullshit meters, and if they smell bullshit, then you're really not gonna like get any place that's worthwhile. You may achieve these milestones that you set for yourself. You may be like, I only play music and I make money no other way. I only play shows and I make
Yeah.
money no other
Yeah.
way.
Yeah.
Or I have this big fan base, or I play these shows that I like, or like I get put on a commercial or something. But you may find that those things are actually not very fulfilling or interesting because you're kind of in this circle that anyone with like a real people who are looking for like real human connection are just going to go somewhere else,
Yeah.
so and they can now. I think that's one of the things that's incredible about the internet is like you don't have to participate in that anymore if you don't want to. Like you don't have to have a record deal to make a record that like people can listen to, and it's
Yeah.
like so people will go somewhere else, and you'll find yourself alone with a lot of people that just are only interested in power and just treat each other really poorly.
Yeah. Yeah. Dude, I wish you well, man. I'm so thankful for all the inspiration and just your album. I really loved listening to the diversity and the spontaneity of your album. And, we'll put a link, in
Oh, cool.
the
Thanks, man.
comments to your music video or the album or your website. Just yeah, try and get some more ears on it. I think what you're doing is really valuable and helpful. So thank you.
Thank you, man. That means a lot. I've really been enjoying your songs as they come out, and I'm looking forward to the next one.
Right on, dude.
All right.
We'll talk again soon.
Sounds good, man. Have a good one. I appreciate you having me on.
For sure.
Bye.
Later.